Hello, everybody, and welcome to Draftings. That's right, this is Ty Atkins, and we are talking about week 2 of the English Premier League. We have done our selections, that's right. Me and my friends here, that's right. We've got Andy Davies over there. Next to him, we've got Edo Delamonte, and of course, we've got staff writer Jamie Hinks. We've all come up with our 8-man roster, which we hope you do too. So to give you a flavour on who we've got and why, let's start with Edo, goalkeepers. Who's your keeper this week and why?
Ruud Vorm of Tottenham because of Hugo Lloris's injury. Is it Ruud?
Michel
Vorm, not Ruud. Ruud Krol. Ugh, that's silly. Anyway,
that's
he's the most...
Krol as well. Right, listen, everybody...
Ruud had it on the brain.
I'm gonna tell you all.
People of Holland are offended.
Edo Delamonte is our European football expert, and apparently everyone from Holland is called Ruud. They're not, it's Michel Vorm, but I think you knew
Ruud
that.
van Basten.
He's had a long night.
Ruud Overmars.
Rudimental. Anyway, stop this. Stop. No, you picked Michel Vorm.
I picked Michel Vorm. No, he's the most expensive goalkeeper, and I think for good reason, because Crystal Palace, as Jamie would have mentioned earlier, look toothless. Connor Wickham is your only sort of attacking option up there, and even when they did have shots on goal in their home defeat to West Bromwich Albion, there were actually a few shots there from outside the box. Andros Townsend would have had a few attempts, so there'll be saves in there as well, but I'm really banking on the clean sheet, and I think at that price, I do see it, considering how match day 1 was, especially the Saturday, not particularly interesting. In fact, we only had 2 halves of football that contained more than 1 goal, I believe. I do expect there to be more goals because I don't trust a lot of these defences, but Tottenham's, I do. Even though Vertonghen didn't look great against Everton, I think he'll be just a bit better, just getting back into shape. So Vorm, I think, Ruud Vorm is a good option.
It's a canny pick because of he's playing at home. He's got an opportunity of a lifetime because he's filling in for the injured Lloris for the next 3 to 4 weeks. Very expensive though. Andy Davies, who have you gone for in goal?
I thought Michel Vorm was the most expensive keeper on DraftKings just as a clerical oversight. I just missed him out. I've gone for Les Fabianski of Swansea.
Isn't that Brian Fabianski?
Tony Fabianski of Swansea. I've got the Lucas Fabianski of Swansea, 5,000. Got 17 points last week. I'm expecting him to get a shutout against Hull, but he'll be put to work a little bit. But I'm expecting Hull to come crashing back down to earth this week and a Swansea win. So yeah, gone for young Fabianski in goal.
Good choice. Jamie, to you, who's your goalkeeper this week?
Surprise everyone here, I've gone for William Hennessy of Crystal Palace. $4,000. He's so cheap. 4,000 is the lowest price of the lowest of the low. I don't think he's supposed to be this cheap. I think he made 2 saves last week. I think he's going to have a lot to do against Spurs, and that's why I've picked him. Also, I think people will swerve him in larger contests just because they'll be like, oh, Palace are going to get battered by Spurs, which might open it up a bit to be like a contrarian pick. You're picking him, he'll be like 3% owned or something, and you've got more chance at winning one contest.
I genuinely think this is a clever pick because he's going to be making a lot of saves. Yeah, and saves do equal points.
It saved me like over 1,000 compared to a lot of other keepers, and I've managed to get a ridiculously good team, which is definitely going to win.
Well, that's great. And let's not forget that. Did Harry Kane, he unleashed the most shots last year?
Yeah, exactly. He had the most shots. There's a lot of players in that team that like to shoot. And Stekelenburg had a lot of saves to make last week.
Hennessy is going to be busy. That's basically it. So if he can double the amount of saves to the goals he lets in, could be a good value pick. All right, let's go to defence. Edo, hopefully you can get their names right this time. Who are your defenders?
Toby Alderweireld, 4,100. The reason why I went for him and maybe not, say, one of Tottenham's fullbacks, who both had decent scores last week, was the fact that he scored 4 headed goals last season. 3 of those were assisted by Lamella, incidentally. And as long as Harry Kane doesn't take the corner kicks... Only Roy Hodgson.
Kudos to you, Roy.
Yeah, kudos to you, Roy. Yes, Sam Allardyce is considered an upgrade over you. What does that say? Anyway, yeah, we were talking about how bad Crystal Palace look on set pieces. Ron Don scored that way last week. And yeah, Alderweireld I think will be a big threat. I also have doubts, as I mentioned before, about Crystal Palace's attacking potency. So 4,100 seems a fair price. If you get the clean sheet score in there, you get a few tackles. He's looked much sharper than Vertonghen. So yeah.
Excellent. Who?
And the second one, sorry, and Kyle Norton at 3,500, a former Spurs guy. Leicester City tried very few crosses last week against Hull, whilst I think Swansea will have far more, and I think that's a really good price. I think Norton had 6 last week, and unlike Leicester, who were maybe a bit more predictable and tried to go individually, here you're going to have a lot of different people attacking Hull City. You'll have Gylfi back in the middle, you may have Barrow starting on the left, but you'll have Routledge on the right, and then I think the fullbacks will be very dangerous as well. So I think there will be, spaces will open up, and there will certainly be crosses. I think Guidolin maybe want to use not such a sexy style of football, just win ugly, and I think a lot of crosses will come from that. So 3,500 seems a fair price.
It does. I like what you're doing there, of course. You have gone for picks based on their opposition and the opportunities they might get. Because defence, you know, wing-backs and full-backs, they do equal a lot more points. But if you know what you're doing, there's certain centre-backs that are really good value and can bring you points on a given day. Jamie, who have you gone for in defence?
Stephen Kingsley, 3,100, who played for Swansea last week. I think he's such a snip at this price, just as Edo said, they like to use the fullbacks. They're playing against Hull, who I'm not confident in at all. I think that was a bit of a blip there from Leicester last week, I really do. And he had a really nice spread of statistics last week. He had like 2 shots, 1 on goal, 2 crosses, 3 tackles, 2 interceptions, and the clean sheet as well. So he's not just scoring, he's not just crossing all game, and he's not just tackling. He's doing quite a lot of other stuff as well. Alongside him, I've gone for Johnny Evans, 3,400, who will be going out there to impress Arsene Wenger for one last time before he moves to the Emirates. All the Arsenal fans have been dreaming of that, of course. He's used as a fullback by Tony Pulis because Pulis likes to have just as many massive blokes in his squad as he can. And he had 2 tackles, 3 interceptions and 2 crosses last week. I thought he looked quite good against Palace. And he's very cheap. Gives me money for elsewhere.
Absolutely. I picked him last week, actually, Johnny Evans, and he had a blinder. He scored around 12 points or so. And like you, I picked him this week also. On that, and the fact that I believe, yeah, you're right, I think he's put himself in the shop window. There is potential move to Arsenal, which is quite inexplicable. Andy Davies, who have you gone for?
I nearly picked Carl Norton, but I'm a Spurs fan, too many memories, so I had to sack it off. I've gone for reliability in my fullbacks, reliable, consistent point scorers on DraftKings. I've gone for Craig Dawson of West Brom, 4.6 thousand. He got 7.8 points last week, but his average last season was really good. I think he was the top-rated West Brom defender throughout the season. And alongside him, I've gone. I don't want to keep picking on at Palace, man, but I've gone for Kyle Walker. Yeah. But again, he's expensive for a defender, 5.3 thousand. But his statistics are great. He 12.3 points last week. Spurs fullbacks are always worth picking because they always get forward and they always get lots of crosses and they will always score you points, even if Spurs have an absolute shocker of a match. You'll get the fullbacks will get you in double figures. So that's why they're expensive, but they're worth it because they're consistent for that. So yeah, I've gone for Kyle Walker against the lovely Crystal Palace.
Oh, there we go. I've actually gone for 2 centre-backs this week myself. I've gone for Evans and Cahill because they can have an impact, and it does free up a lot of money for my midfield and attack. I'm going to go to you again, Andy, for your midfielders. Who have you picked in midfield, my friend?
My midfield's business.
Yep.
It's absolute business, my midfield. I've gone for Eden Hazard, 7.8 thousand. That's cheap for Eden Hazard. He won't be 7.8 thousand again this season. He'll be up there in the 9s within a few weeks. He's back. He's back on form, and he was fantastic last week. And Watford away, he's going to turn up, isn't he? He's Eden Hazard all day long for that game. And alongside him, I'm unsure how highly owned Eric Lamela will be because he's still not quite a particularly fashionable Spurs midfielder. When people talk about the top Spurs midfielders, they go for Dele Alli, Christian Eriksen, because Lamela still has this stigma of being sort of not particularly good in his second season. His first season doesn't count because he was injured for all of it. But for me, he's Tottenham's most consistent player. And what's good about Eric Lamela, points-wise, is he's not just... he does everything. He dribbles, he crosses, he likes to shoot. He'll always get the odd assist, the odd goal, but he tackles as well. So even if Eric Lamela's having a bad game and the dribbles aren't coming off and the shots aren't coming off and the passes aren't coming off, he still gets stuck in and his tackles are awful. I mean, they're woeful. but he'll still score you points in that respect. And where some players have high averages on DraftKings because they'll have one game where they're sort of 20, 30 points and another game when they're sort of 5 or 6. Eric Lamela, if you look at his statistics of last season, they're always very, very consistent. He's a very consistent source of points. And at 7.3 thousand, I think that's quite cheap. So I've gone for Eric Lamela.
Yeah, I'm glad you're singing about Lamela because not many people do. I think he's got the stain of Andre Villaboa still on him, which is probably unfair. No, yes, he has.
Very stubborn.
He is, because a lot of people haven't forgiven that purchase, but they ought to because he's been delivering in the last 12 months.
I think the problem Eric Lamela had was he was injured in his first season, so he didn't have a first season.
And he had awful haircuts.
And he came in with the Bale money, and I think people were expecting a like-for-like Gareth Bale replacement. But he's not that type of player at all. And now I think that, particularly Spurs fans that have now worked out who Eric Lamela is, we love him. He's really popular, and he's arguably our most important midfield player because he does so much in that midfield, and he sets the tempo of the game as well.
Yeah, so, well, yep, I think he's shaking off the stink of AVB. I'm going to move on to you, Jamie. Who's your midfield, my friend?
Philip Coutinho, 7,400. 2 goals last week. Looked brilliant against Arsenal, I thought. He did pick up a knock, which was later confirmed to just be cramp, so he'll be playing again this week.
You said cramp, not crabs, right? I wasn't too sure.
I don't know.
You can play football with us, so it's fine.
You can play football with either. So
all right, very good.
You can have what you want. He's dangerous from any...
That's a chant. Philip Coutinho can have what he wants.
Sometimes it's crabs. Sometimes it's
Liverpool, everybody.
crabs.
It can happen.
Dangerous from set pieces on the edge of the area, as we saw last week.
Yes, it
great
was.
goal that was. And all 3 of his shots were on target last week, which, although it doesn't sound like that much in general, it's worth another 3 points on Draftings, which could push you over the line. Alongside him, I'm agreeing with Andy. Eden Hazard, 7,800. Looks ludicrously cheap at this price, especially with Watford away. I thought he was Chelsea's best player going forwards on Monday night, and West
For
Ham.
50 minutes, I would say. It was like the first 55 minutes he was awesome, and then he seemed to
He does
tire.
tend to do that though, doesn't he? But I think if Chelsea want to win the league, he's going to have to. He needs to shine. Like, he needs to score sort of 17, 18 goals this season, and do a Mahrez and just be the best player in the league, basically. Otherwise, yeah. But yeah, Eden Hazard, Philip Coutinho.
Well, everyone knows what I think of Eden Hazard. I think he's the best player in the world. When he wants to be. We'll see if he does it this season. Edo, is it a full house on Eden Hazard?
It's a full house on Eric Lamela.
Well, it isn't, because only he picked him.
Oh, sorry, it isn't.
I'm starting to think that Edo...
I'm not picking against
I'm
Palace.
starting to think that Edo didn't get much sleep last night. Would that be
I
correct?
didn't actually.
There we go.
I was a honky tonk, yeah.
Okay, sorry, you're midfield.
Disco.
No, I don't look tired, Ella.
No, and I've got a Star Wars convention later, so... No, Eric Lamela, 7,300. Yeah, he's been involved, as we said before, in 7 goals in as many Premier League games, which is really impressive. And yeah, in the first half against Everton, when the rest of the midfield was wilting a little bit from all the pressure, it's surprising how Ronald Koeman had said that his team was 70% fit, and in the first half they were everywhere. He was one of the only ones who, as you say, consistent. He was one of the only ones who was sort of resisting. And yeah, he has become quite a consistent player. He's a threat in many different ways. He can sort of crawl into space and try a shot from outside the box, which Tottenham love to do. And I'm quite envious of his Hennessy pick now, actually, because that's quite a good choice. But yeah, I just think Lamela there at that price is just too good to be true. And the other one is Willian at 8,300. He had 7 crosses last week. So even though he flew under the radar DK-wise, he still had a very good performance. And I think Watford will have too many good players to defend against, and he could find space. And he was Chelsea's most consistent player last season. Not that that's saying a lot. I'm also worried about Mazzari because he's accused of being a bit of a fundamentalist with the 3-5-2. And if you look at the fact that West Ham also tried to crowd the midfield with 3 players and got beaten, Mikel Antonio was essentially not playing as a fullback, so that's almost a 3-man defence in a sort of perverse way. And Chelsea eventually tore into that. I think Willian can do that against Watford. So 8,300, I'm quite happy about that.
Okay, good DK points on offer there potentially. Very quickly, I've gone for Eden Hazard for the same reason these 2 gentlemen have. And I've also gone for Mahrez, who's playing Arsenal. He's just signed a new 4-year contract, everybody. Presumably, he's a happy boy and he wants to make a statement. He probably will against Arsenal in the late kick-off. Right, strikers, straight to you, Jamie. Who are your 2 guys up front?
So on Draftings this week, they've introduced a new M/F.
Saw that, yep.
So, which means I've been able to get Riyad Mahrez in as a striker. Just gives you a bit more choice in your lineup. You can fit more midfielders in. Mahrez, 9,900. I don't think he's expensive at that price. He got 22 points last week against Hull, but only 12 of them came from a goal. So he's getting other points elsewhere. Vardy, in comparison, only had like 3.5 points maybe. And you'd expect, for a player that is supposed to be one of the best strikers in the league, you'd expect more. As you say, signed a new contract. I think he's going to have a point to prove out there. And also, Arsenal's defence is very questionable. Even if Koscielny comes back, I still don't trust them against this team who won the league last year. Let's not forget.
Let's not forget.
And yeah, I really like that pick. I think anything below 10,000, I think you've got a good pick there from Mahrez because he just is the heartbeat of their team.
Agreed.
Alongside him, I've gone for Diego Costa, 8,400, just because I think stacking Costa and Hazard together is probably a good idea this week on DraftKings. He played very well for the entire. You say that Hazard played well for 55 minutes. I think Costa played well for the entire game.
He did.
Maybe he shouldn't have been on the pitch, but that doesn't matter. It's what the referee decides, isn't it? He's just an absolute beast. He still had 12 goals last season and 6 assists, which is excellent for.
And turned it on quite late in the season as well.
Yeah, but like season before that, yes, he had 20, but like you just got and I mean also something that also impressed me at the end was how him and Batshuayi seemed to team up for that goal, which I know Edo didn't think he was going to be that good, but like that was a good assist from Batshuayi.
Yeah.
If they bring him on at the end and they need a goal, then Costa could easily score another goal this week, and then you're laughing.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if we actually do play 2 up front. It wouldn't surprise me. I'm not too sure about it, but yes, Costa will certainly play, and he is very, very hungry. Has he made your team, Andy?
Yeah, he has, absolutely. Diego Costa, yeah, he was the first name down when I was picking my strikers. So, yeah, for pretty much everything that he said, he'll link up well with Hazard. I'm expecting Chelsea to beat Watford up. And he looked really good last week. And he looks happy. He looks like the beast is back in a kind of horrible way. So I've gone for Diego Costa. Alongside it, so this season I'm all about the slightly ageing Spaniard. As you know, Negredo last week. So this week I've gone for Llorente of Swansea. He's only 7,000, and he didn't score last week. He was fantastic. He played really, really well. So he's due a goal. They're playing Hull. I've got that down as a 2-0 anyway, and I've got that down as Llorente getting both, and that will happen. That's what I said about Negredo last week. What I say about ageing Spaniards this season will happen. All right, I'm the ageing Spaniard whisperer.
I love it.
So yeah, Llorente, and he's cheap, 7,000. So I've gone for him, and now they are my strikers.
Oh, there we go. So apparently you can take that to the bank. If Andy Davies tells you to pick an aging Spaniard, pick that aging Spaniard. We'll see if that comes true, of course. I've also picked him.
Yeah.
But yeah, St. Diego. One thing we've got to look for, of course, is disciplinary. Disciplinary, that could be a factor because there's no back chat allowed with referees now.
Did you hear? Apparently, he didn't know that was the rule.
Beautiful.
Someone
Classic
told him after
Diego.
the game.
Really?
So I still don't know how he didn't get sent off.
Well, let's see.
Something.
Let's see if he can curb back the Portuguese/Spanish swearing slang against Watford. Who's your strikers, Edo?
I really wanted Llorente as well, but I was so enamored with the 2 guys I've chosen. Obviously, now that I've picked them, they're jinxed. But Salomon Rondon at 5,600, just because he's played wherever he's been. He was really good for Venezuela, then in Spain, in Russia. And 9 goals for last season's West Brom team really isn't bad, considering the kind of state they were in and the fact that you didn't have Berahino doing Berahino things. Well, he just wasn't. You know, this is often quite alone. He would still manage to come up with 9 goals, which I'm quite impressed by. So 5,600 for him, I think, could be quite a bargain. They're playing against Everton, and so Ashley Williams may not be match fit. Even if he is, does he really know Jagielka very well? Even though he is the completely correct choice in central defence. If not, you have Funes Mori, and that will be entertaining because Evertonian bile on Funes Mori is brilliant. They absolutely hate that man. Almost like when Liverpool fans used to really hate Lucas. Like right at the beginning, it's that. Anyway, the other choice, speaking of Liverpool, Andre Gray, 7,400, because he played well last week despite the defeat. But Burnley really, put Swansea under the cosh there for quite a while. And Liverpool's defence still doesn't convince me. I think they'll win this game. They'll still win this game with a margin, but people focused on Moreno because he played like a clown. But even on the other wing, Klein attacked pretty well, but those 2 Arsenal goals came from his wing, people cutting inside, and he basically didn't do anything about it. So I do think that Burnley will create chances. Marnie looked decent last week. So Andre Gray at 7,400, I think, is a reasonable price. A little bit of a risk, but yeah.
Oh, very good. No, okay, they've given us their goalkeepers, their defenders, their midfielders, and their strikers. But as you know, DraftKings fans, we do get an 8th man to pick, and that is the utility player. That's right. So what money you have remaining, you can go out there and pick a player from any position to try and get your points. Let's start with you, Edo. Who's your utility player this week and why?
Can I say it with an accent?
We'd be disappointed if you didn't.
If you don't, then
Felipe Coutinho.
So for everyone else out there, that's
Felipe
Philippe
Coutinho.
of Liverpool. I suspect for the same reasons that Jamie picked him.
Mais ou menos. No, yeah, same reasons. He was absolutely phenomenal last week, and this could really, because there have always been questions about Coutinho's consistency, because you'll play a blinder and then next week not do anything. But I think everything is there for him to do really well, and it was really good of Klopp to play really without an established striker, so that the three attacking mids and Coutinho could just wander, they could just roam, and that second goal against Arsenal was an absolute it was a masterclass, because he basically moved inside, created space, and he did that on numerous occasions. So even if he maybe doesn't grab a goal, an assist will be in there. He'll get shots. As Jamie mentioned, his shots were all on goal. 7,400, I think, is a really good price, and I think it's DraftKings not knowing in which direction he'll go, very rightly so. But we were saying that Hazard is probably going to be north of 9,000 quite soon. Coutinho potentially could end up there as well. So yeah.
I think that's an inspired choice. I think Coutinho played very, very well last season. Operated under the radar, where everyone was picking your Ozils and your Mahrezes and your De Bruynes. Coutinho was going about his business. I think he's settled in the Premier League now, and I think he's going to have a great year. Jamie, who's your utility player?
I've gone the same team as Edo, but different player, because I've already got Coutinho. So it's Jorginho Wijnaldum. Get mixed up with these Dutchmen. It's tough. Got an assist last week, so starting to pay back that ridiculous sum that Klopp decided to pay for him. But he always gets double figures for goals. Like the last 2 seasons, he's been in the double figures for PSV and then for Newcastle. Newcastle very poor last season, and he also had 5 assists last year. So it is only Burnley this Saturday. We do need to remember that.
It is only Burnley.
And if they can destroy Arsenal like they did, they can certainly destroy Burnley. And he's only 5,800.
Good value, good value. And finally, Andy Davies, who's your utility player? And give us how you came about him, because usually it's either he's the first man in your sheet, or it's just the spare change down the back of the sofa. What was it this week?
It was a spare change, fella. Yeah, I'd run out of money. And I went on I just looked down the list and thought, well, who did well last week? Because it's a kind of like shutting the door after the horse has bolted pick. I've gone for Rude Fur.
You are never going to live this down.
It took me a couple of seconds there. I actually thought it was his name.
I've got with Levi Fur. He got 18 points last week. He won't get that this week. But hey, he was 4.4 thousand. And I only had 4.4 thousand left. It was him or just rubbish.
For a very active midfielder, I think that's a
very active midfielder.
Absolute
and
bargain.
again, they're going to win. I think last week he played a little bit further forward. I think this week he's going to play a little bit further back. So may not get the chance to attack as much as he did last week. Because I'm just thinking Sigurdsson maybe starting, so that'll push him further back into the midfield. But still a Swansea win. So yeah, Rude Fur.
Rude Fur?
He's your man.
Great logic, gentlemen. I like that. That's why you're here. But let's have a look at the teams you selected. Let's start with Andy Davies' team. Here we go. We've got Fabianski in goal. Rude Fabianski? No, don't forget. We've got Dawson, Walker, Eden Hazard, who's the best player in the world. Lamella, St. Diego, Llorente, and Leroy Fer. Let's move on then to Edo's picks. We got Ruud Vorm right there in goal, next to Ruud Oudeveld, Ruud Norton. we got Lamella, Willian, Rondon, who had a great game last week, Andre Gray, who we're expecting big things from. I think that's a dubious choice considering they're playing Liverpool, although that is a poor defence. And then we've got Philippe Coutinho, who I think is an absolute Rolls Royce for playing. And finally, we've got Jamie Hinks' lineup. We've got Hennessy in goal. Interesting. The Stephen Kingsley. Who's he? Then we've got Johnny Evans, Coutinho, Eden Hazard again, Mahrez, great choice, St. Diego, and Wijnaldum. Those are our choices, everybody, but what's yours? Hopefully you know how to do this by now. If you don't, just go to the app, look at the selections, pick your 8-man roster with the $50,000 that's there in your budget. Come on, you can do this. You can win big. Welcome to the big time.